Mom called me 2 days before Thanksgiving. We think it's best if you skip this year. Your brother's bringing his fiancé's parents and, well, we need to make the right impression. I gripped the phone tighter. What does that mean? She sighed. You know what I mean. You don't exactly fit the image we're going for. The line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling the familiar sting of being erased. My name's Clara. I'm 26 years old. I'm a middle school teacher and private tutor, and I come from the kind of family where money talks louder than love ever did. My parents own a successful consulting firm, big clients, fancy offices, the kind of business that gets written up in local magazines. My brother joined the firm right out of college. He fit their vision perfectly, ambitious, polished, hungry for success. I chose teaching, and from that moment on, I became the disappointment. Not ambitious enough, they'd say. Wasting her degree. I lived in a small apartment with creaky floors, drove a beat-up car that sometimes didn't start, spent nights grading papers and tutoring kids who couldn't afford fancy prep schools. My parents compared me to my brother constantly, his accomplishments, his career, his future. I wasn't rich or glamorous like they wanted, but I had something they didn't expect. I actually cared about making a difference. I loved my students. I believed education could change lives. They didn't see it that way. If you've ever been pushed aside by family, subscribe right now and tell me where you're watching from. Because what happened next showed me exactly where I stood. The real breaking point came 6 months before that Thanksgiving call. My parents were celebrating their 30th business anniversary with a massive gala. They sent me an invitation, embossed paper, formal font. I thought maybe this was my chance to be part of the family again. I bought a new dress I couldn't really afford, wrote them a heartfelt card about how proud I was of everything they'd built. Showed up early to the hotel ballroom. The place was packed. Business partners, politicians, people in suits that cost more than my monthly rent. My parents stood at the entrance, greeting everyone warmly. Handshakes, hugs, introductions. When I approached, their smiles froze. Dad introduced the people around him. This is Mayor Richardson. This is the CEO of Hartwell Industries. This is my son and his lovely fiancée. A woman in a pearl necklace looked at me. And who is this? Dad hesitated. Actually hesitated. Oh, that's a family friend. The words hit me like ice water. Before I could speak, Mom grabbed my arm and pulled me aside. Her grip was tight. Her voice was sharp. What are you doing here? We didn't think you'd actually come. I pulled out the invitation. You invited me. It's right here. She glanced around, making sure no one was listening. That was a formality. This event is for successful people, Clara. You don't fit. I'm your daughter. She cut me off. Your brother is taking over the business. We're announcing it tonight. This is his moment, not yours. I tried to argue, but she'd already walked away. I stood there in my too expensive dress, holding a card they'd never read. During the speeches, my parents took the stage. They talked about legacy, about hard work, about their vision for the future. And we're thrilled to announce that our son will be taking over as vice president, continuing the family legacy of excellence. Applause filled the room. No mention of me, not once. A guest I knew from their holiday parties came up to me. I'm surprised they didn't mention you. Before I could respond, my brother's fiancée walked past with her friends. Her voice carried. I didn't even know they had a daughter. Laughter followed. I left before the cake was served. As I walked out, I overheard Dad talking to a colleague near the bar. We have one child who made us proud. One child. I drove home crying so hard I had to pull over twice. But that wasn't the end of it. That was just the beginning. A month later, my brother got engaged. I found out on Instagram. Photos of the whole family at some upscale restaurant. Champagne toasts. My grandmother was there, my uncle, even my cousin who lived 3 states away. No one told me. I called Mom the next day, trying to keep my voice steady. Why wasn't I invited? She sounded distracted. Oh, we didn't think you'd be interested. It was mostly business talk anyway. He's my brother. His fiancé's family is very well connected. We needed to make a good impression. You understand? I didn't understand. But I stayed silent. A few weeks later, I ran into my parents at a restaurant downtown. I was meeting a student's mom to discuss tutoring sessions. They were in a private section with business associates. Dad saw me first. He looked uncomfortable. I walked over to say hello. Mom's face tightened. Clara, we're in the middle of important meetings. One of the associates smiled politely. Is this your daughter? The pause was too long. Dad finally spoke. Yes. Clara's still figuring things out. You know how young people are these days, trying to find themselves. Laughter rippled around the table. Mom added, we keep telling her teaching is a lovely hobby, but she's very stubborn. More laughter. I excused myself, shaking. As I walked away, I heard Dad's voice carry across the restaurant. Kids these days don't understand real work. I made it to my car before the tears came. 2 months later, they called asking for a favor. Their annual charity gala. The usual event planner had bailed. You're so good with details and you have the time. I should have said no. But part of me saw it as an olive branch, a chance to reconnect. I spent 3 weeks organizing everything. Vendors, seating charts, donation tracking, programs. The night of the event, I arrived early to oversee setup. Mom looked surprised when she saw me. What are you wearing? I looked down at my dress. My best dress? Well, you're not sitting with us. You're working, remember? They treated me like hired staff all night. During the speeches, my brother was thanked for stepping up to organize such a beautiful event. My name wasn't mentioned once. When I confronted Dad afterward, he barely looked up from his phone. You're too sensitive. We gave you something to do. That night, something changed inside me. I stopped trying to prove myself to them, and I started building something real. What they didn't know was that while they were ashamed of me, I was changing lives, one student at a time. For the past year, I'd been developing an online educational program for underserved students. It started small, 5 students. Kids who couldn't afford expensive tutoring but were hungry to learn. Within 6 months, it grew to 50 students. I combined tutoring with mentorship and college prep. Real support for kids from low-income families. And they were getting real results. Grades improving. Confidence building. College acceptance letters. I saved every testimonial. Every success story. Every thank you email from parents who couldn't believe their kid was thriving. My parents had no idea. They never asked about my work. The program started gaining quiet attention in education circles. A local nonprofit director reached out. She loved my approach and introduced me to advocates and other educators. Small income started growing from program fees and grants. I kept it all private. Not because I was hiding, I just wasn't ready to share it with people who'd never believed in me. Then a local news education reporter reached out for a possible feature. Other educators were emailing, wanting to learn my methods. I had something real, something that mattered. And for the first time, I didn't need them to see it. Then I met James. He was the parent of one of my students. We met at a coffee shop for a progress update on his daughter's work. Turns out he worked in education investment and philanthropy. He looked through my program materials, genuinely impressed. Have you thought about scaling this? This could help thousands of kids. I hadn't dared to dream that big. He offered to introduce me to the education foundation he advised. Over the next few months, James became a mentor. He helped me formalize a business plan, connected me with the right people. The foundation showed serious interest, partnership, funding, the opportunity to expand to 5 cities. Meanwhile, my family's arrogance reached new heights. My brother's wedding was being planned like a royal event. I was invited but not included in any planning. His social media was filled with posts about family legacy and building the future. My parents gave interviews to business magazines about raising successful children. Singular, not plural. I was seated at a back table with distant relatives I barely knew. At a family dinner I reluctantly attended. I overheard my aunt talking to Mom. "You must be so proud of your son." Mom beamed. "Yes. At least one of them turned out right." Dad laughed. "Clara's still playing teacher. We've given up trying to motivate her." My brother sat right there. He said nothing. Didn't defend me. Didn't correct them. Nothing. 1 week before the wedding, I got the call from James. The foundation approved the partnership. My hands were shaking. "Are you serious?" $250,000 in funding to expand your program. Clara, this is real. The local news wanted to feature my story. A national education blog requested an interview. I was invited to speak at the state education conference. James's voice was warm. "Clara, you're about to become a voice in education reform." I had a choice to make. Stay quiet and small to keep the peace, or step into my truth. I was done hiding my success to make them comfortable. The rehearsal dinner was at an intimate restaurant, just close family and wedding party. I walked in, and my parents looked surprised. I think they assumed I'd skip it. Dad stood to give a toast about family legacy and the values we instilled. Mom added, "We always knew our son would make us proud." I stood up. The room went silent. "Can I say something?" My parents looked annoyed. My brother looked nervous. "I need to be honest. I've spent my whole life trying to be enough for you." Mom's voice was sharp. "Clara, this isn't the time." "When is the time, Mom? When you introduce me as a family friend? When you exclude me from family dinners? When you make me organize your events, then treat me like the help?" Guests shifted uncomfortably. My parents' faces were reddening. Dad stood. "You're being dramatic. We've always supported you." I stayed calm. "No. You've been ashamed of me. Because I chose teaching over your business. Because I don't make enough money. Because I don't fit your image." I pulled out my phone and showed the news article preview. "This runs next week. A feature on my education program that's helped over 200 students. Students you never asked about." Silence. "I just signed a partnership with the Riverside Education Foundation, $250,000 to expand to 5 cities. My brother spoke up. "Clara, why didn't you tell us?" "Because you never asked. In 3 years, Dad, you've never once asked about my work. You called it a hobby, Mom. You said I was figuring myself out." A family friend at the table sat up straight. "Wait, are you the Clara Winters from that program?" "I read about you. My colleague's daughter is in your program." My parents' expressions shifted from anger to shock. Mom tried to recover. "Well, we always knew you were capable." "No, you didn't believe in me. You weren't there. This is mine. I built it without you. And honestly, your rejection freed me." My voice didn't shake anymore. "I don't need your approval anymore. I needed it for so long, but I'm done." Dad's voice was defensive. "We're your parents. We deserve respect. And I'm your daughter. I deserve to be seen." I walked toward the exit. Then I turned back one last time. "I hope you have a beautiful wedding, I really do. but I can't keep making myself smaller so you feel bigger. I left, hands shaking but head high. Behind me, the room was completely silent. I didn't go to the wedding. I sent a gift with a kind note. But I chose myself. The news feature published the following week. The response was overwhelming. My program expanded. I hired 2 staff members. The education conference gave me a standing ovation. Schools and nonprofits from other states wanted to partner. 3 weeks after the wedding, Mom texted, "We should talk." Dad called, "We'd like to take you to dinner. Discuss your project." My brother sent a long text apologizing, but it was filled with excuses for our parents. I met them once, set clear boundaries. They wanted to be involved now, wanted credit, wanted association with my success. I politely declined their investment offer. This is mine. I don't need you to validate it now. We maintained a distant but civil relationship. Holidays, surface-level conversations, nothing deep. I found real family in my students, my mentors, and the community that supported me. I spent so many years trying to prove I was enough for them. Turns out, I just needed to prove it to myself. Their silence didn't hurt anymore. It freed me. I was finally at peace, successful on my own terms. If this story hit home, you're not alone. So many of us have had to prove ourselves to the people who should have believed in us from the start. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. I read every single one and I love hearing from you. And if you've ever had to build your success without your family's support, share your story. You never know who needs to hear it today. Hit subscribe for more real stories about finding your strength when family lets you down. Thanks for being here. Your story matters too.